Guten Abend zusammen.
Einen wunderschönen guten Abend.
Guten Abend. War schon ganz schön was los hier in den Kommentaren.
Oh, moin aus Bremen.
Marc Fiederer, schön, dass du da bist. So, also herzlich willkommen beim Tamdhu Live-Tasting.
Jawohl. Ja, also wir hatten eben schon im Vorlauf das Gespräch mit Luigi von Whiskymax, dem Gordon von Tamdhu. Die beiden sind bereits auch dabei, sind jetzt noch blind geschaltet. Wir werden sie jetzt gleich aufrufen. Nur für euch, wir werden so ein bisschen den Ablauf jetzt besprechen, wie das jetzt so vonstatten geht. Und zwar werden wir euch gleich erstmal den Luigi vorstellen und werden dann den Gordon von Tamdhu auch zuschalten. Der Luigi sagt dann ein paar Worte zu Gordon.
Ja.
Der Gordon erklärt euch ein bisschen was auf Englisch. Falls es da Probleme geben sollte, schreibt es in die Kommentare rein. Ja, also
Wir übernehmen so ein bisschen den deutschen Part heute.
genau.
Und Luigi ist so ein bisschen der Vermittler.
Ja, genau. Und der Gordon wird euch jedes Mal was über die Flasche erzählen. Wir werden die Flasche vorstellen und dann zusammen genießen. Was wichtig noch ist, nachdem sich Gordon vorgestellt hat, werden wir einen kleinen Teaser einspielen, dass ihr die Distille Tamdhu einfach mal seht, um was es da heute Abend geht. Und ja, dann auch auflösen, was das Geheimnis heute ist. Ja, sind wir sehr stolz drauf. War nicht einfach, die Flaschen zu besorgen. Ja, wir sehen schon aus Österreich, aus Erfurt, aus Bremen.
Kurz zum Line-Up, falls ihr euch die Whiskys vielleicht schon einschenken wollt, dass ihr schon mal wisst, in welcher Reihenfolge wir das verkosten werden. Wir fangen mit dem 12er an, gehen dann über zum Fragezeichen Sample Nummer 1. Dann kommt der 15er Tamdhu. Dann kommt Fragezeichen Sample Nummer 2. Dann kommt der Cask Range bzw. Batch Range und dann das Single Cask zum Schluss.
Genau. Ja,
so
viel dazu.
Dirk fragt, Chat auf Englisch oder Deutsch?
Also wir haben das so geregelt, wir steuern das jetzt hier mit den Kommentaren ein wenig, ja. Das heißt, wenn ihr Fragen habt, wenn wir sie so aus der Leiste beantworten können, dann machen wir das so. Wenn das spezielle Fragen an Gordon sind, stellen wir die jetzt, wie ihr es jetzt hier seht, ins Display ein. Der Luigi sieht das, wird das an Gordon weitergeben. Yes. Und wir reden dann darüber. Ich denke, das mit dem Englisch, das kriegen wir heute hin. Ich werde mich da etwas zurückhalten. Mein Schulenglisch.
Die Schweiz ist auch am Start.
Jawohl.
Und Ungarn.
Oh, Ungarn. Ja, gehen auch viele Pakete mittlerweile hin, muss man sagen.
Yes. Okay, so schön. Dann wollen wir euch mal den Luigi vorstellen. Luigi ist der Verkaufsleiter, Vertriebsleiter auf sämtlichen Messen zu sehen von dem deutschen Generalimporteur Whiskymax und den zeigen wir euch jetzt mal. Da ist er. Grüß dich, Luigi.
Servus, grüß euch.
Stell dich doch mal kurz vor.
Kalte Grüße aus München, ja, wie gesagt. Ja, wer mich noch nicht kennt, vielleicht nicht viele, aber ich bin für Whiskymax im Vertrieb tätig als Vertriebsleiter. Wir sind Generalimporteur von Tamdhu und sind wirklich sehr, sehr stolz, heute mit euch zusammen und mit Gordon das wunderbare Tasting hier machen zu dürfen. Ja.
Ja,
perfekte Zeit, glaube ich, gut ausgesucht. Ja.
Das läuft auf jeden Fall, ja. Beim Donnerstagabend, was willst du tun? Ja. Also von daher passt das ganz gut. Auch die Zuschauer zu Hause, es sitzen auch manchmal mehrere vor einem Fernseher, natürlich regelkonform, gehe ich ganz stark davon aus, ja. Das wird natürlich eingehalten, ja. Ja, cool.
Aus Schottland wird auch zugeschaut?
Ja, sehr gut.
Hello, how are you?
Und hi Luigi, mein Hase. Alles klar. Okay, Luigi, wen hast du denn heute noch mitgebracht?
Ich habe heute große Überraschung, den Gordon Dundas mitgebracht, den Global Brand Ambassador für Tamdhu. Und er wird uns heute ein bisschen über Geschichte, Herstellungsart, ja, Charakterbrennerei, so ein bisschen in die Hintergrundgeschichten einfach führen. Wird sehr spannend. Also wie gesagt, ich habe vorher gerade mitbekommen, wer Englisch mächtig ist und die Fragen gleich auf Englisch stellen möchte, der soll das tun und der Gordon kann das natürlich mitlesen und er kann das damit beantworten. Wir werden so ein bisschen abwechseln mit dem Übersetzen. Ich glaube, das kriegen wir alles so hin.
Ja, okay, denke ich auch. Ja, dann lass uns mal den Gordon holen.
Hello, Gordon. Great that you're here. How are you?
Guten Abend.
Good
Good evening. That's as far as the German goes. Good evening. Good evening. Looking forward to a great evening. Thank you very much.
That's what we will be a great evening, great night. Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. Good to see so many people here.
Yeah.
And Sir Peak, good evening to you, and Gus Rennie and Dirk and everybody. Hello. Let's go.
Wonderful.
Yes. Gordon, tell us about your work.
Well, it's been a bit different this year, to be honest, like a lot of people. I've been in the whiskey industry for about 17 years now. And I've been with Ian McLeod for 3.5 years, working on Tamdhu as well as Glengoyne, Rosebank. And Tamdhu for me is a whiskey which has committed to a particular style, which we're going to explore tonight. It's fantastic. I love it. And there are many more people understanding Tamdhu within Scotch whiskey now.
Yes.
Wonderful.
It's a great, it's a small brand, but it's a brand that, because of its style, is generating some real interest amongst whiskey drinkers because it's different. And we'll explain why that is.
Okay. Wonderful. And translate a little bit, Gordon.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah. I didn't want to say too much.
Nee, der Gordon hat gemeint, der arbeitet jetzt seit 17 Jahren in der Whisky-Industrie. Ja, und seit 3,5 Jahren jetzt für Tamdhu, also für den Ian McLeod-Konzert, wo Tamdhu mit dazugehört, also Glengoyne, Rosebank, Tamdhu. Und Tamdhu ist eine kleine Marke, aber das Ganze ist sehr special. Ja, und das wird er uns dann heute im Laufe des Tages danach, oder des Abends besser gesagt, erzählen, warum das so ist.
Ja, okay. Passt ganz gut. Wir zeigen euch jetzt nochmal ein paar Bilder von Tamdhu. Wir haben ein kleines Intro gebastelt und dann werden wir schon gleich mit dem ersten Whisky beginnen.
Ich bin dafür. Gordon, jetzt kommt the teaser from the guys and then we start with the first.
Okay.
Jo, bis gleich. So we are back.
Amazing photo.
Okay, jetzt haben wir jetzt nicht verstanden.
Okay.
Great photos.
Can you repeat that, Gordon?
I was having a little joke. I was going, they're really good photos.
Okay.
It's true.
So, Gordon, first question. Could you tell our viewers a little bit of the history of Tamdhu?
Well, Tamdhu is, let's be honest, it's not the oldest whiskey distillery in Scotland, or by a long way. In fact, by about, I can't even work it out, something like 121 years younger than the oldest. So anybody on the panel, anybody here know what the oldest distillery in Scotland is?
So, der Gordon hat gerade gefragt, ob die Zuschauer wissen, wer oder welche Distillery die älteste ist. Bin mal gespannt.
Ja.
Ja.
Aber ich würde es mir jetzt nicht.
So, Leute, haut rein.
Ja, traut sich.
We're not talking about Glenturret, which it is, the Glenturret. But we're only 1897. So thank you, Mark. Full marks to Mark. Well done.
Aus Thüringen übrigens, aus Erfurt. Grüß dich, Mark. Sehr gut.
So we're only 1897. But I think what's really important to understand, and is that Tamdhu was the most modern distillery of its time. It was one of those amazing distilleries where the Walker name, the Dewar, the Grants were all involved in it, and they basically looked at the whole Scotch whisky arena in the 1880s, 1890s, and went, oh, look, that works really well. That's really efficient. Oh, look, that's a great idea. Oh, look at that. And they took all these great ideas from all the different distilleries and put them all in one and made it the most efficient modern distillery of its time. So it's 120 years old. That was the ethos of Tamdhu.
Okay. Also der Gordon hat gemeint, Tamdhu gibt es seit 1897 und ist mit eigentlich einer der modernsten Brennereien, die es gibt, weil in der Zeit haben sie halt, sie haben halt ein bisschen aus der Box gedacht, also haben sich halt ein bisschen umgeschaut und haben gemeint, oh, die machen sowas und die haben halt alles auf einmal komprimiert und haben alles mit reingezogen an Ideen und so ist eigentlich die Philosophie von Tamdhu immer, sich weiterzuentwickeln und nicht nur in der Box denken, sondern auch außerhalb der Box denken und so ein bisschen schauen, was so los ist.
So yeah, I mean, not a very old distillery, very near, located right on the banks of the Spey, so right next to Knockandow Distillery, not far from Cardew. Macallan is 5 miles away. It's really right in the center of Speyside. Genuinely, the water comes from the Spey right next door to the distillery. And the main reason it was located there is, if you remember back to the pictures, we saw the train station. That train station was critical for getting casks in and out of Tamdhu back in when it was created. So the Speyside Railway and its access was one of the main reasons Tamdhu was built where it was.
Okay. Oh, okay. Also, Steffen, darfst auch mal übersetzen.
Also Tamdhu liegt ziemlich in der Mitte, also im Zentrum von der Speyside. Das Wasser wird natürlich direkt aus dem Fluss Spey genommen. Und mit der Bahnstation hat auch was zu tun, dass dort die Fässer quasi ziemlich schnell transportiert werden können, beziehungsweise ankommen können, so wie ich das verstanden habe. Und hat man auch, glaube ich, im Intro eben schon gesehen, die Station. Wurde auch komplett von Tamdhu renoviert. Und die liegt direkt an der Distille, ne?
Das liegt direkt an der Distille, also nicht weit entfernt. Genau.
Ja. Sehr praktisch.
Sehr praktisch.
Ja, coole Geschichte.
So
wonderful.
It was a single malt that then really, for years, and was never really released as a single malt under the various owners. Laterally, it was Edrington that owned. We bought Tamdhu from Edrington. They never really did very much with Tamdhu as a single malt. It was very much used as a single malt for blending. We purchased the distillery in 2011 with a limited amount of stock, which was all sherry casks. And so our owner, Leonard, decided, having understood the importance of sherry casks in the history of Tamdhu, that we would only make a fully matured in seasoned Oloroso sherry cask whiskey. And actually, and I'm going to ask the audience who are watching this as well, that makes us unique in the Scotch whisky industry, because I don't think there is another distillery that every single expression is only Oloroso sherry casks from start to finish.
Okay. Also Tamdhu macht halt sehr, sehr speziell, weil sie einfach vom Beginn zum Ende hinaus einfach nur Oloroso-Fässer hernehmen. Ja, und als sie damals 2011 die Brennerei übernommen hat, also Ian McLeod gekauft hat, haben sie einfach gemerkt, dass Tamdhu, also die hatten unglaublich viele Sherry-Fässer auf Lager und dass Tamdhu das generell ausmacht. Ja. Ich weiß nicht, bei den Zuschauern eine Frage, habt ihr schon mal Tamdhu getrunken oder ist das für euch das erste Mal?
Mal schauen, interessante Frage. Ja. Also da denke ich, können wir aus der Vergangenheit reden, dass die Marke
ask the viewers now, or the first time they're drinking Tamdhu, or they have one on the glasses.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, I think as a range that we're going to taste tonight, you're going to taste quite a lot of difference between them. We've got whiskies that are first fill. We've got whiskies that are very, very different. But the one thing that makes the consistency is how they are matured. So let's take this question here. From which part in Spain did you get most of your casks? We get all of our casks from within the Sherry Triangle in Jerez. So they all come from Jerez. They all come from Andalusia. They're all officially approved sherry casks, Oloroso only, no PX, no Fino, no nothing, only Oloroso, and we only mature from start to finish, all the way.
Okay. Also die Fässer kommen aus Jerez de la Frontera in Spanien und die sind natürlich alle zertifiziert und es ist wirklich nur Oloroso, kein PX, kein Fino, kein andere Sherry-Geschichte, sondern von Beginn bis zum Ende nur Oloroso-Fässer. Und ich würde sagen, bevor wir jetzt komplett nur labern, gehen wir doch zum ersten, oder? So, Gordon, start with the first drum, with the first.
It's always a good one. Yeah, let's. I've got a little bottle of it here just to showcase anybody who's not so familiar with Tamdhu, how it looks, and I think, when you see a bottle like this, which I think anybody would argue is one of the most iconic bottles in the whole of Scotch whiskey. And then we have a beautiful box that surrounds this naturally colored whiskey, then it's a really, really wonderful presentation for the whole of the Tamdhu range.
Yeah, yes, that's right.
Genau.
And this is the 12-year-old.
Yes.
So, wir starten mit dem 12er. Also, wie der Gordon auch schon gerade gesagt hat, die Flasche ist halt in der ganzen Whisky-Industrie, denke ich mal, einzigartig. Und Gordon, what is the idea about this bottle? Why it's so? Also,
it is. I'll tell you where it came from. 1897, Victorian era. And this has got quite a Victorian feel about it. It's really to celebrate the fact that there's a strong Victorian history in Tamdhu. And actually the shape of this bottle comes from one of the soda bottles that you used to get many, many years ago. And it's a beautiful shape. And it's really to reflect the Victorian era, the era of enlightenment within that sort of what was going on in the UK. So it really is such a strong tribute to that part of history.
Okay, also ich habe gerade einen Gordon gefragt, was die Idee hinter der Flasche ist, und die Idee ist halt einfach, dass Tamdhu generell sehr geprägt von der viktorianischen Zeit in England ist, und diese Flasche soll ein Soda-Maker vom Frühjahr nachempfinden, also diese Sodaflaschen. Ja? Deswegen sieht die Flasche so aus. Ja?
Yeah, I mean, what I like about it as a shape, it's a bottle that says broad shoulders. It's going. I'm very confident of the liquid inside me. It's a very confident bottle. Small label, very positive bottle, which I really like.
Ja, also wie gesagt, es soll eigentlich eine sehr, sehr eine Ausstrahlung geben, eine sehr, sehr also mit breiten Schultern soll die Flasche herkommen. Ja, hier ist der Tamdhu drin, und so soll er auch rüberkommen. Ja.
Yeah, really.
Yes, nice.
So we have the first whiskey.
So how do we make this whiskey? How do we make it? Well, the first thing, if you can remember, I don't know if you can call up any of the photos that you had at the beginning, but I think, if we just look at if it's possible to have a look at the stills, it's important to understand. Yeah. There we go. Important to understand, if we look at this for a second, that Tamdhu's a big distillery. It can produce up to 4 million liters of alcohol a year. So we have 3 sets of stills. This is 2 of them. There's a third set from where the picture has been taken. And you can see each set is identical. So if we look there, the wash stills are identical to the spirit stills. It's a very automated distillery, but it produces a beautifully oily, fruity whiskey because, again, we don't overheat the stills. And it's all. The other thing to note about Tamdhu, we use very lightly peated malt, but not to a point you'll ever pick it up in the whiskey.
Okay, also wenn wir uns das Bild nochmal anschauen, also das ist 1 von 3 Sets, und von der Washstill bis zur Potstill sehen alle Brennereien gleich aus, und das bringt unglaublich dieses ölige, fruchtige Whisky, und die verwenden leicht getorften Malz, aber ohne, dass es im Whisky danach zu schmecken ist. Also es ist schon ein sehr, sehr automatisierter Vorgang, was Tamdhu da hat, können bis zu 4 Millionen Liter Alkohol im Jahr produzieren, was eine Menge ist. Ja? Ja. Genau.
Das stimmt.
So the first thing, like all good single malts, the spirit is fantastic quality. About 15% of what we produce. So we're producing about 3.3 million litres at the moment. That does not all go into sherry casks because we do not have enough sherry casks. So we take about between 10 and 15% of that goes into our sherry casks for our single malt. The remaining 85% we use for other parts of Ian McLeod's business. We trade whiskey, we trade spirit for grain spirit. There's a lot of that other 2-3 million litres of alcohol is used for other parts of our business. So, but whenever you pick up a Tamdhu like this, you know it will only ever have been matured in a sherry casks all the way. And that's really, really important for the single malt.
Genau. Also, die produzieren momentan 3,3 Millionen Liter und man kann sich das so vorstellen, also nicht die ganzen 3,3 Millionen Liter werden auch in Sherry Cask nur einzigartig für Tamdhu hergenommen, weil so viel Sherry-Fässer haben die momentan auch nicht, sondern wie gesagt, Tamdhu gehört ja zum Ian McLeod-Konzern dazu und deswegen werden die zum anderen Teil des Business oder der Brennereien halt einfach verwendet, genau. Aber 15% werden wirklich für die Single Malt Herstellung genommen und die anderen 85% werden halt geteilt zwischen den anderen Geschichten, was Ian McLeod noch zu tun hat. So, Gordon, can you tell us a little bit more for the 12 years old?
Yes. So if we look at our whiskies tonight, with the exception of one of them, all of the whiskies tonight have been made with two types of casks. European oak Oloroso seasoned sherry casks and American oak Oloroso seasoned sherry casks. Those two types of casks are used in the first fill and in the refill. Only those types of casks. You will never see a bourbon cask used in any element of Tamdhu single malt. And so we combine those first fill 12-year-old casks of both types, as well as 12-year-old refill casks, at least, and we marry that all together. The other variable is the cask sizes, butts, puncheons, or hogsheads. And you will get very different 12-year-old whiskey from a smaller hogshead than you would from a 12-year-old sherry butt.
Also der 12er, es gibt zwei Arten von Sherryfässern, die sie hernehmen. Einmal amerikanische Weißeiche und eine europäische Weißeiche. Also natürlich beide Sherry, also ist jetzt kein Bourbon dazwischen. Und vom Beginn, also vom First Fill und vom Finishing sind es halt immer diese zwei Typen Fässer. Genau. Wir hatten gerade eine Frage, glaube ich, eingeblendet. Steffen, kannst du die vielleicht nochmal einblenden? Ja. So we have a question for you.
Yes,
Gordon. Can you read it?
What's the ratio of first, second, third filled casks in the 12-year-old? To be honest, Dirk, I don't know. All I know is that we've got a decent amount of ratio of first fill of both those oak types. So remember, we're talking, the more important aspect here is the oak type difference. You'll notice when we move on to whiskey number 3, there's a real taste difference, and that's because we've got a different ratio of these casks. And as you move through all of these whiskies, you'll begin to pick up the difference. Because if you look at what the flavors generate, European oak is much more of that rich, dark, tannic fruitiness. American oak is more juicy, vanilla, red berried fruitiness. And when you combine them together with refills as well, you pick up something like this 12. I think there's a little bit more American oak in the 12.
Okay. Also, Dirk, um die Frage zu beantworten, ich weiß nicht, ob du es, ich glaube, du hast es mitbekommen, aber für die anderen. Also, die Rotation kann ich dir gar nicht gerade so sagen, aber es ist das, was es einzigartig einfach macht, dass es halt einfach dieses, wie gesagt, dieses amerikanische Weißeiche und diese europäische Weißeiche und im 12er ist ein bisschen mehr amerikanische Weicheise vorhanden. Also es bringt mehr dieses starke, vanillige Aroma einfach mit sich. Und bevor wir jetzt noch weiterreden, würde ich sagen, Slanchi.
I'm going to ask, there's a question, just an interesting question, just going back to production briefly. How long is the fermentation going on at Tamdhu? What impact does that have on the new make? It's a great question. I mean, I think if we look at if we look at production of spirit in reverse, okay, so distillation, big impact. Fermentation, less impact. And then mashing and barley, less impact again. So the fermentation is important. The length of fermentation is important. We use a yeast that really promotes fruitiness at Tamdhu. And that is actually really important, combined with about a 59-hour fermentation.
How long?
Helps us 59 hours.
59 hours, okay.
It's not like 58, 59. Stop now.
Okay.
It's quite rough, but 59 hours is, and so that really helps us produce that fruity but heavier, weighty spirit that we produce, which really suits sherry cask maturation. So the impact is important for sure of fermentation and the yeast style.
Okay. Also wenn man sich jetzt den Herstellungsverfahren ein bisschen von hinten anschaut, also natürlich hat die Destillation einen großen Einfluss, ja, die Maturation und dann einfach die Fermentation. Also wenn sie halt einfach fermentieren, dann haben sie über 48 Stunden und die haben eine unglaublich schöne, fruchtige Hefe. Und dadurch wird ein sehr, sehr schwerer New Make hergestellt. Und man braucht diesen schweren New Make, damit die Sherryfässer das beste Aroma einfach aufsaugen. Ja.
Okay. Gut. Ich werde mal ganz kurz noch auf ein paar Kommentare eingehen.
Ja, klar.
Bevor es mir dann überhand nimmt und ich einige Fragen übersehe. So, eine Frage von Mark.
What are we picking up on the nose here?
So, we have one more question, Gordon.
Okay.
You have a special bodega in Jerez, or you have different bodegas?
So we work with 3 cooperages. Now, what I would like to say to everybody, and I'd love to share the link. Luigi, I think you know it as well. We've got a great video that explains a lot of this on Spain. It's really, really great to share. If we could share that across the bottom, share it to people in the chat. Look, we work with 3 cooperages in Spain, Tavasa, Vasima, and Huberto de Mec, and they work on our behalf with bodegas. So Williams and Humbert, Bodegas Baron, other bodegas that we will use who will supply us with sherry that we will rent effectively for seasoning our casks. So the whole process is 6 years, but it's the cooperages that manage it for us.
Okay, also die arbeiten mit 3 Hauptbodegern zusammen im Prinzip. Verzeiht mir, aber ich habe mir gerade nicht alle 3 Namen auf die Schnelle merken können. Genau, ja, und das ist einfach das, was auch das Ganze ausmacht. So, Gordon, let's talk about the 12.
Yeah.
So the 12.
What do you think?
I absolutely love it. It's my daily dram, if you know what I mean, in a way. And it's a really interesting, I think, it's a really lovely sort of entry point into Tamdhu. When you drink a 12, which has been matured in bourbon casks, you get a vibrancy, you get a sweetness at the front, you get a lighter style maturation. Bourbon casks make great whiskey, there's no doubt. But when you use only sherry casks, you get a thicker, richer style. But you also get this real fruitiness with Tamdhu that comes through. And on the nose, there's a hint of spiciness, cinnamon, a little bit of dark raisins, a little bit of that darkness coming through from the European oak. But I think what's also really interesting is the silky mouthfeel, which you just don't seem to get with bourbon casks, as it's not as thick. And that's what I love about it. Berries, there's a maltiness as well, but there's certainly no smoke. I get no smoke on this whiskey.
Okay. Also generell vom Geschmack her, dass die Sherry-Note oder diese Oloroso-Note einfach ein mehr Speichelfluss anregt an die ganze Geschichte. Deswegen kommt auch dieses Fruchtige, dieses Schwerere von der europäischen Eiche einfach sehr, sehr gut beim 12er durch. So.
Ich finde es ein perfekter Einsteiger.
Yes, it's very nice. Yeah, I like it.
It's really very drinkable.
Yeah. For the beginning, it's a very comfortable whiskey. Yeah,
Absolutely great. And so all of our core range products is made in the same way. It's all those combination of American and European oak. The only whiskey that doesn't have that really is will obviously be the single cask at the end. But it's a fabulous example of how you can marry sherry but still not create just whiskies that are all sherry bombs. These are subtle whiskies with beautiful fruitiness from Tamdhu coming through as well.
Also das Schöne am 12er ist halt einfach, dass wir hier eine Sherry-Note haben, die halt nicht in dieses, ja, ich sag mal in dieses schokoladige, dunkle geht, sondern ist eher mehr das Fruchtige, was der Gordon halt einfach auch meint. Ja.
Ja, sehe ich genauso. So, noch eine Frage von M.M.
How much alcohol has the new make? It's around about 70.
70. Okay.
Also so um die 70% hat der New Make bei Tamdhu. Ja. So, jetzt würde ich gern wissen, wie schmeckt es denn euch da draußen? Ne?
Genau.
Kommt ihr soweit alle mit?
Genau.
I like a good starter, yeah. I like Sir Peak Christmas pudding, brandy butter on the nose, then custard to go with that on the palate. I think Sir Peak he might be, he sounds like he might be Santa Claus.
Okay.
he's in Christmas already with this range. This range of whiskies is just going to get more Christmassy as we go on. Beautiful whiskey. Luigi, you know this whiskey well. What do you think of it? Do you like this one as a starter for the range?
Yeah, it's a beautiful whiskey. That's a beautiful starter for tonight. I think it's a very, very, it's a very big in the mouth. It's very strong. Yeah, it's very, it's a good starter. It's the best whiskey to begin in.
Yeah. And Alice Rund whiskey, absolutely super starter. Everybody's loving it.
Yeah.
Rudolph Kniefenegger. What nose for the 12? Well, up to individuals. I mean, there's no right or wrong answer, I think, in terms of people's nose. But for me, it's got that sort of. I wouldn't add water to this whiskey. I think it doesn't need it. But there's a sort of dark sort of background of raisins and that type of thing. But there's a real cinnamon sort of. There's a maltiness. There's a fruitiness. I get pineapples now, a little hint of pineapples on there as well. Okay. A lovely, lovely whiskey to start the evening off.
Genau. Jungs, was sagt ihr?
Sehr toll. Also ich habe schöne nussige Noten.
Okay.
Auch ein bisschen, was ein bisschen in die getreidige Richtung geht. Also so ein bisschen, schon so eine leichte Malzigkeit nicht, aber schon so nussige, getreidige Noten. Das passt schon an sich. Mit ein bisschen Müsli, kann ich sagen. Zimt auf jeden Fall auch. Also Cinnamon. So leichte Zimtschärfe. Aber positiv gesehen. Ne? Also das Würzige ist auf jeden Fall der Zimt. Passt, denke ich mal, echt gut zur Jahreszeit jetzt.
Okay. Yeah, the guys say they have a lot of nuts and cinnamon aromas. Yeah,
definitely nuts in there. There's a nuttiness for sure. The cinnamon is pretty strong.
Yeah,
but it's in a very nice way. It's when you get cinnamon that's very sort of suits the style. Perfect. Really, really good. Absolutely gorgeous. And I just got a hint of that sort of Christmas pudding note just wafts past in the background. There's a bit of the European oak going, hello, and coming back at it. And just really.
I have one question. Tell me a little bit of the Christmas pudding. What it is?
You must have an equivalent in Germany. It's basically raisins and sort of, raisins and raisin sponge.
Okay.
But with lots of alcohol in it, brandy, and it's very rich and heavy, and it's got nuts in it. It's got that real sort of dark, heavy taste. You would have it with a custard. You'd have it with cream.
Okay.
It's what we have for dessert on Christmas Day, and it's really dark fruits. Okay. Beautiful though. Sir Peak, there's nothing like it in Germany, which I'm like. Really? But obviously there isn't. But just type it into Google. You'll see you set fire to it. It's beautiful.
Okay, für diejenigen, die sich gefragt haben, was ein Christmas Pudding ist, also ich musste es jetzt einfach fragen. Es ist einfach ein sehr, sehr heftiger, schwerer Sponge-Schwamm, also Kuchen mit Rosinen, und der wird halt zu Weihnachten gegessen mit viel Brandy und Alkohol und Sahne und so weiter. Genau, und so schmeckt dieser 12-Jährige auch.
So as we always say as whiskey producers, burn the brandy on the pudding and drink it with the whiskey.
Genau, also was die in England sagen, ist, tu den Brandy auf den Pudding und trink ihn, zünd ihn an und trink ihn dann mit dem Whisky, ja, genau.
It's a bit like a friend of mine once said, a Scottish friend of mine who works in whiskey, and he was asked in an interview, he was asked in an interview, what's the best thing about an Irish coffee? And he's a Scotch whiskey producer. And he just turned around immediately and went, the coffee. As a joke, it was very, very funny.
Okay, wonderful.
What's the best thing about an Irish coffee? Most people would go the alcohol, but no, he's like, the coffee.
Ja. So, haben wir denn noch Fragen, Jungs?
Wir schauen mal kurz durch. Ging jetzt ganz schön ab hier in den Kommentaren.
Ja, bitte, Entschuldigung, wenn wir eure Fragen nicht jedes Mal aufnehmen können. Hier sind echt viele Fragen und ja, wir wollen ja auch ein bisschen weiterkommen. Deswegen, wir schauen einfach mal.
Ich schaue mal kurz durch, was wir noch so
Gordon,
haben.
we look for another question for you.
And what's Stollen mit alcohol? What's Stollen?
Stollen, it's the
Stollen.
It's the German pudding.
I'm going to type it into Google.
Pudding, yeah. It's with a lot of there's a lot of dry orange or dry lemon and raisins and nuts. It's not like a spump. It's a little bit harder.
Like a bread.
Yeah, it's like a bread. Yes.
Yes.
Christmas pudding, very different. Okay.
Gordon.
Yes.
It seems here. Bring the 10 years old back, please.
so here's a great example of we produced a 10-year-old for many years at 40% alcohol. I think it was 43 in some countries, and we moved it to a 12-year-old, and a lot of 90% of people very happy with that. There's a core of people who are always like, oh, the 10-year-old was fabulous. And it's not often you get accused of adding age to your products, if you know what I mean. You can't really get the 10-year-old, I'm afraid. But you can in the UK if you're in the UK.
Okay.
Which maybe you won't be, unfortunately, at the moment with what's going on. But it is in Marks and Spencer's in the UK.
Okay.
Also. Na, dann holen wir ihn noch her, oder?
Ja, also in der UK ist es noch vereinzelt kaufbar, aber den werden sie nicht so schnell zurückbringen. Aber ich fand den auch sensationell. So, can we go?
You enjoy the 12? Wasn't that great?
Yes.
Yeah, really.
Good.
Best star.
Andy, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I have to agree. I mean, I think it is one of the best whiskies out there because of the care and time we take over the maturation. The cost as well. If I just touch on the cost, one of those sherry casks, and we saw them being made in the pictures at the beginning, one of those sherry casks is about probably 1,200, 1,300 euros, which is the same in pounds, obviously, at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, at the moment.
So, yeah, I mean, it's an amazing expense to buy, to pay for wood, basically. Unbelievable. Beautiful, beautiful whiskey, though. And it's all that attention to detail, which we'll talk about as we move on forward.
Ja.
Also für das, was so ein Sherry Cask kostet, also so zwischen 1200 und 1400 Euro, also was im Prinzip mittlerweile oder gerade momentan dasselbe ist wie Pfund. Aber genau, es ist halt ein sehr, sehr ausgewogener Whisky. So
Go on, please. We have 5 more to go. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, we're moving. Right, we're moving on to whiskey number 2. This is mystery whiskey number 1.
It's whiskey,
Yeah.
mystery whiskey number one.
Mystery.
Yeah.
Mystery.
So go on.
Okay, ich würde sagen, wir lösen es einfach direkt schon mal auf.
Ja.
Yeah.
Mystery Number One ist.
Tamdhu, 14 Jahre alt, Amber.
Jawohl.
Yes.
So in Deutschland schwierig zu kriegen.
Ja.
Echt schwierig. Wir haben auch lange rumprobiert, aber wir haben es besorgen können.
Ja.
Und da ist er.
Ja.
Ganz einfach.
So,
Ich hab-
the Amber.
Das wollen wir jetzt von Gordon hören, genau.
Wir schenken nebenbei schon mal ein. Gordon kann ja ganz kurz zum 14er was sagen.
Genau.
Und dann,
So I hear the name come from the Spanish Amber, also in German Bernstein. It's right?
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. Yeah, look, the Amber we released about 2 years ago in travel retail, airports, ferries, etc., etc. And obviously, the last 9 months that has been bad. But yeah, we were very conscious. I think for me, and this is speaking very frankly, I thought a lot of the offerings of whiskies in travel retail were not very exciting, mainstream brands, you know, fair whiskies. But I think when you can pick up something with the credentials that Tamdhu has in travel retail, and producing something like Amber was great because it was, you know, it was sat between our sort of 12 and 15. Beautiful example again of how we brought together those casks. Fantastic whiskey, and was really, really popular we only had limited quantities though in travel retail.
Okay. Also der Whisky wurde für den Reisebereich produziert, also für Flughäfen und so weiter und so fort. Amber oder Amber, der Name bezieht sich auf, also auf Spanisch übersetzt heißt das in Deutsch Bernstein, und das sieht man auch in der wunderbaren Farbe, das wir hier haben. Ja.
So this is 43% as well.
Genau, es hat auch 43%.
But it's a little bit different to the 12-year-old, 2 years older,
Yeah.
natural color. And what I love about this, yeah, I mean, I could compare it with the 12, and you'll pick up slight differences.
Yes, of course.
And now
I think
I've got a whiskey.
the Amber contains more European oak, maybe.
A little hint, I would guess. Yeah, absolutely. Just has that slightly darker profile. Same strength, 2 years older, same color pretty much, but yeah, just a little hint. I think the first thing I pick up is that sort of sultana raisin note, which whereas in the 12 it's more of a vanilla creamy style. So just a little bit richer on the nose, this, but not but again it'll be different to the 15, which we'll try in a minute. This is great, really, really lovely. So on the nose, it's got that sort of
More heavier than the
yeah, it's got a little bit heavier. It's got a bit of spice, bit of sultana. There's a bit of orange in a sort of way, a bit of that orange style.
Thorsten, das ist das Fragezeichen Nummer 1. Fragezeichen Nummer 1. Und das ist der Tamdhu, 14 Jahre alt, Amber, den es nur für den Travel Retail, also für den Reisebereich gibt und man so hier in Deutschland nicht bekommt, im Einzelhandel bzw. im Fachmarkt. Und das ist quasi das erste geheime Sample.
And when you taste this, that heavier profile again comes through. A little bit richer, not hugely, but just a little bit more weight of flavor on the palate. A little bit more spice, oak spice through the whole process, but really fruity. I get red berries on here as well. There's a real redness to this.
It's a great example to see what makes 2 years difference and a little bit more European oak on the
yeah, absolutely. And you'll see how that changes again. I mean, the 2 years is probably the least element that's affecting this whiskey. It's more the European oak. But yeah, I mean, it's a great darker, slightly darker. We're moving it's a notch further up on the Christmas scale than the 12, you know, and we're going to sort of go in that journey, as it were.
Also geht jetzt nicht mehr in diese ganz weihnachtlichen Stimmung, sondern wird halt jetzt dunkler, kräftiger, also geht jetzt mehr in diese schokoladige, kräftige Ja. Rote Früchte, genau.
Das war das erste, was ich gemerkt habe. Früchte. Ja. Also das ist echt sehr deutlich.
It is juicy. It's got this juiciness. It's got this sort of almost like a sort of citrusy. I don't really know. It's like a sort of more of a fresh dessert, not quite got that Christmas pudding angle. It's really, really lovely. But yeah, there's quite a lot of orange that comes out sometimes in Tamdhu. More distinguished. I like that description. It's beautiful, but again, it's again plenty of that Tamdhu spirit, that fruity Tamdhu spirit coming through, and it really does hold up to this style of maturation.
Also wie gesagt, dieses Fruchtige, das Fruchtige, was Tamdhu generell bei der Destillation hat, das kommt in jedem Whisky durch und das kommt vor allem bei dem sehr, sehr gut durch. Ne?
Yeah. And it's almost like a sort of it's almost a bit like sort of not salted caramel, but sort of spicy caramel.
Okay, really?
And then a little bit of sort of almost caramel that's got a bit of spice to it. I don't quite know how to describe that. And then on the finish, I'm getting that sort of.
But it's very in the underground, this caramel. Also it's, yeah.
I just got a whiff of it, and then I get that spicy finish. Not overly spicy, but just a warming, gentle, spicy finish. Nice depth of flavor coming through, and a little bit more warmth than the 12-year-old here.
Yeah.
Ich finde es eine schöne Steigerung. Vom Eingang mit dem 12er jetzt auf den 14er, das geht wirklich wie nahtlos über, muss ich sagen. Also er gefällt mir jetzt besser. Oder 12er, 12er zum 14er, aber ein guter Starter, der macht es einfach ein bisschen runder. Er wirkt ein bisschen weicher, finde ich. Ja. Deswegen war ich jetzt nicht so bei Spicy, so ein bisschen vielleicht, ein bisschen ja, aber jetzt nicht so stark. Ich habe schon einen stärkeren. Sehr fruchtig, finde ich.
Okay.
Ne? Ja, also, vielleicht liegt es an den 6 Cast-Wenn wir vorher getrunken haben. Aber nein, Spaß. Also, nee, also top. Schade, dass es ihn so nicht mehr gibt.
Yes. Ja, das stimmt.
Selbe an Gordon wieder.
Kannst du mal Gordon sagen, schade, dass man den so nicht kaufen kann in meinem normalen Einkauf.
So, you have idea when it's come back to the traveler market?
Well, look, I mean, it's still in travel retail, but it's sitting on the shelf. Like,
okay.
Gordon hängt.
Okay.
It was originally exclusive for World Duty Free, which was UK airports, duty-free. And then it widened out to Heinemann, I think, so it would be in German airports.
Okay.
So if you are traveling through an airport, like the big ones, you might be able to find it. But it was, you know, as I said, we never had a huge allocation of it compared to all the other brands. So you might have to only find it in the bigger airports like Munich or Frankfurt.
Okay. Also wenn die ganze Corona-Zeit vorbei ist, Jungs, dann müsst ihr einfach nur in Urlaub fliegen, damit ihr einen schönen Amber bekommen könnt.
Ja, dann kommen wir doch direkt nach München runter zu dir.
Ja, gerne.
Wir fliegen von Erfurt nach München und holen dann den Tamdhu mit.
And price-wise, it was between the 12 and the 15, so where you would expect it to be.
Okay. Also der Preis liegt zwischen den.
And that question feels more alcohol than the 43. It does feel a little bit more alcohol than the 12, and that's because of the European oak.
Okay.
More European oak makes alcohol. It's not more alcohol. It's more influence from the oak, bringing that appearance of more alcohol.
Also die europäische Eiche bringt halt einfach mehr Alkohol auf der Zunge. Na, also finde ich persönlich auch, dass er sich nach mehr anfühlt als 43%.
Also Olli ist er fruchtiger.
Okay.
Fabulous.
So, wonderful. It's a good second one, yeah.
You have to sell it in Germany.
Russia, we do sell it in Germany, but only in airports.
Yeah.
In airports, okay.
But it's lovely, really, really good. But limited, but hard to find. We don't. The key thing about, I think, is we have a lot more. We have very limited stocks of Tamdhu. It's not a whiskey we have. Let me just give you a little story. Biggest selling malt in the world, Glenfiddich or Glenlivet, 1.2, 1.3 million cases. Scotch, Tamdhu, 15,000 cases, very small. So we don't have loads of stock. So we only had a small allocation of amber. We only had a small allocation of a lot of our whiskies, the 15 which we're about to try as well. We don't have a big allocation of, as Luigi probably knows. So
yeah, I know it.
but we have to just wait until we have some more. The next big thing for Tamdhu is the 18-year-old, and that will be in 18 months.
Oh, nice. So, Gordon hat uns was Geiles erzählt, Mädels, Jungs, Entschuldigung. Bald ist der 18er soweit, und zwar in 16 bis 18 Monaten. Und ihr könnt euch das so vorstellen, also die größte, Glenfiddich und wie auch immer, Glenlivet verkaufen 1,4 Millionen Cases, also Boxen, Kisten, ne? Und Tamdhu liegt halt immer bei 15.000, und das ist halt schon ein Unterschied. Und wir freuen uns, glaube ich, alle auf den 18 years old. Ja.
Habt ihr das gehört? In 16 bis 18 Monaten kommt der 18 Jahre alte Tamdhu.
Ja.
Luigi, da machen wir doch bestimmt eine geile Kooperation.
Natürlich, ja. So I tell the guys we make a new sample box with the 18 years old now. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll come back and do this in a year and a half time.
Yeah, of course.
Ja, nice, very nice.
That will be nice, Gordon. That's really
Fantastic.
Ember heißt Bronze? War das Bronze?
Nein, Bernstein.
Bernstein, genau. Von der Farbe her. Ne?
Ja.
Genau.
Von der Farbe.
Also Amber ist dasselbe wie Amber auf Englisch, und Amber heißt der Bernstein. Ne?
Okay. Ja.
So.
Schön cool.
Okay.
Also.
Well, there's quite an interesting just lead into the next whiskey would be the question of from Gurgly Rax. He says, nice balanced finish, sweet and spicy. A bit higher ABV would work better, around 46 to 48. So the 15-year-old is 1 year older. It is 46%. So we're going to see how that then manifests itself in a fairly similar whiskey.
So, wir gehen jetzt weiter zum 15-Jährigen, das ist der nächste. Und der hat jetzt 46%, und dann sind wir jetzt mal alle gespannt, was so 3% mehr Alkohol so bringen. Ne?
Also zum 15er können wir sagen, dass wenn wir ihn im Sortiment hatten vor einem Jahr circa, war der ständig weg. Also es war ständig die Nachfrage.
Ja, man immer noch da.
Ja,
Also,
wie
gesagt, der 15-Jährige, wie wir den Gordon auch gehört haben, ist halt streng limitiert, und er macht die Range komplett, finde ich. Also the 15 years old make the core range completed. You know, Gordon?
Yeah, we have a 12, 15, that is it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and well, there's the batch strength as well, but yeah.
Yeah. So, Gordon, why 3% alcohol more?
Well, when we reached our 15-year-old stocks, we had a balance to make, and this is the ethos of how we make our whiskies. It applies to it would be. We know that the people that are drinking Tamdhu are in that higher echelon of whiskey drinkers. They're people that know whiskey maybe at the moment. We're not a brand attracting drinkers into whiskey. So we felt unanimously that we wanted to make the best possible whiskey at the price point that we could do. Doing it at 46 meant we could make it non-chill filtered. Means that we were going to get a better, exactly what Gurgly's just said, in terms of getting a better mouthfeel, a better sort of experience. So we decided to fill it at 46 rather than 43, and it makes a fantastic whiskey.
Okay. Also es war eigentlich eine Entscheidung, weil sich es einfach 46 besser angefühlt hat. In dem Prinzip, in der Produktions kurz gefasst, ja.
Ja,
ja. So, ich blende euch nochmal ganz kurz das Bild ein. Das ist der Tamdhu 15. Vom Etikett her ein dunkler Blauton. Grenzt sich ziemlich stark ab, ne, von den 12er und von den
15 Jahre.
15, genau.
15, ja.
15 Jahre alt.
Ja, genau.
Yes.
So, und der Rudolf fragt gerade, in welcher Preisklasse sind diese Tamdhus? Und da würde ich die Frage einfach mal weitergeben zu Sebastian Becker, der bei uns auch mit dem Chat ist, der übrigens auch das letzte Singlecast gestellt hat.
Ja.
Sebastian, schreib doch einfach mal zum 12er und zum 15er, wo die preislich liegen. Bei dir im Shop vielleicht. Und ja, für den Endkunden halt, was der für eine Flasche Tamdhu 12 oder 15 ausgeben muss. Zum 14er kann man da, glaube ich, nicht so genau sagen, da wird es schwierig.
Also der Gordon hat vorher gemeint, dass es zwischen dem 12er und dem 15er preislich liegt.
Ah, dazwischen quasi.
Dazwischen,
Okay.
ja.
Der 14er.
Ja, nee, aber nicht bei uns. Bei uns ist der 14er über dem 15er.
Okay.
Question on price.
The prices, yeah, from the whole range, it's but from...
Ja. Zum Teil 200 € gesehen. Nicht gekauft, aber gesehen. Ja, also da geht es ab gerade.
Aber im Online oder im Flughafen?
Online.
Okay.
Also wenn du jetzt auf den Zweitmarkt kriegst, als Endkunde, du willst den haben, gehst, was weiß ich, eBay oder Whiskybase, wo sie den verkaufen, 200 € aufwärts.
Ja.
Ne?
Okay.
Also man geht auch drunter, aber da musst du lange suchen. Gibt es noch, aber ich denke, so langsam, spätestens nach diesem Livestream wird es die nicht mehr geben.
Okay. So the guys tell me that their 14 years old Amber is here on the online market in Germany. Yeah, 200 €.
Right, okay. I wouldn't buy it for 200 euros, but I think it would have been normally about 60 or 70
60,
euros.
okay.
In an airport.
Okay, ihr habt es gehört, zwischen 60 und 70. Also wenn Corona vorbei ist, dann müssen wir unbedingt reisen, würde ich sagen.
What's the retail price of the 12-year-old in Germany?
Yes.
I'm waiting on Sebastian Becker from deinwhisky.de. This is the one who have exclusive the single cast, our last.
Oh, yeah, the final whiskey, yeah.
Yes, and he would tell us the price of the 12 and the 15 years old. But I'm not sure if he is...
Ja, er hat es schon geschrieben.
Ich sehe es noch nicht. Ja, hier ist er. So, 12-year-old, 41 euros or 42 euros, and the 15-year-old is 18 euros.
Yeah, so the amber would have been about 70 euros which is about right.
Okay.
65, 70 euros. So this is the 15. Now, what we've done here, more European oak. There's a bigger European oak influence now, stronger European oak, 46%. So the European oak is a little bit more dominant. There's a little bit of a richer profile, darker color because of that. Add in the 46%, this is one of the finest 15-year-old whiskies I think I've ever drunk. And I'm not just saying that, genuinely amazing.
Okay. I think it's a little bit sweeter than the other twos. Yeah? It's
probieren. Slanger.
It's more nut aromas.
Yeah, I think there's quite a bit of that. I'm getting more pineapple on the taste, a little bit of that sort of juiciness. It is sweeter at the front. It's got quite a different profile. It doesn't seem as spicy as the amber.
Okay.
Du findest einen würziger?
Ja.
Ich finde es wiederum nicht.
Was sagt denn so der Chat? Was sagt ihr dazu?
But it's quite orangey as well.
Okay, orangey. Okay.
Haut mal rein, Tamdhu.
Bestimmt was vertauscht, weißt du?
Ja, wahrscheinlich. Das ist jetzt kurios. Olli fand den 14er nicht so würzig. Ich fand ihn recht würzig. Und jetzt ist wieder andersrum. Ich finde den 15er gar nicht so würzig und er findet ihn wiederum würzig. Das ist natürlich...
Did you guys have two different opinions? For Ollie, was the 14 years old more spicy than the 15 years old? Yeah. And for Stefan, is now the 15 years old more spicier than the...
That's the beauty of whiskey. That's the beauty of whiskey. I mean, I think when you use these casks, and I think, firstly, I just want to talk a little bit about the casks in the context of the whiskies. I mean, can you put up the picture of the tree? Would that be possible?
Yeah, of course.
I love looking at trees. I want to just explain. That is a Spanish oak tree. So we use mainly Spanish oak. Now that tree might make one cask.
Okay.
Da freuen sich die Grünen.
Let me just be upfront. We need the straight bits. So where his head is on the trunk, that's what we need for cask making. The bits with the bit from the branches upwards is useless for making casks. Okay. So that tree is really, really, you might get a cask and a half out of that. Now, what's really interesting at that point is that when you use only Spanish oak, it's obviously a very different oak to the imported American oak. And that's where the process starts. And you just start to understand even when you look at the logs of American oak in the cooperage and European oak, you see the difference in them, how the difference in the grain. Mm-hmm. And that's where you start to understand why they are so important.
Mhm. Also das Bild, was ihr gerade gesehen habt, aus so einem Baum kommt ungefähr ein Fass raus. Also es ist schon krass.
Das ist heftig.
Das ist krass. Ja.
Er freut sich, Claudia Roth.
Ja.
How many casks you have on stock? You can tell us?
Oh, at Tamdhu, we're ever growing. I don't actually know the number, funnily enough. Not many. We have very little stock above sort of 16, 17-year-old at the moment. We have a couple of very old casks, but I don't know. It's really not a huge amount of stock, and so we are filling casks at the moment. So we bought the distillery from Edrington, and they had been filling only sherry casks for Tamdhu, a lot of sherry casks for Tamdhu, and we use the same suppliers because it's it's consistent. We use the same malt spec. We're distilling in a very similar way because we want to ensure that when we move on to Ian McLeod, 12-year-old, so we've only owned the distillery for 8 years. So when we move on to Ian McLeod's production, Ian McLeod's spirit, not Edrington's, there is a seamless journey through so the same specs, the same barley, the same, all that is similar. And the casks are, of course, the same. So that's what we are doing.
Okay.
But if you have something like, for example, Macallan, where they have put a line in the sand and they have gone, it was old Macallan up until 2019, then they built the new distillery, poof, and they have, from that point onwards, their new distillery. I think what's really, really, and I think they'll absolutely have no problem with this, is they'll have a fairly seamless move on to it in 10, 12 years' time. But there will be those people who will go, oh, this is old Macallan 12. Here's in 12 years' time. Here's new Macallan 12. What's the difference? What's the, that will always happen. And we're going to have the same with Rosebank. But the difference is Rosebank's been closed for 27 years. So there's a very different, it's interesting when distilleries decide to change something, whether that's ownership or, new distillery or whatever.
Okay.
So, McMalt sagt mehr Orange.
Yes,
orange, of course. Mark creamy nuts.
It does have a little bit of nuts in it for sure.
Yeah.
Undoubtedly.
But I think not so much like in a 12. It's a little bit less nuts.
Yeah, and it's got a real maltiness on the end. I'm picking up a real maltiness on the end of this.
So, Christian. Yeah,
so pineapple in the nose.
Pineapple in the nose, yeah, I'd agree with that.
Very creamy on the tongue and spicier than the 14 years old.
I don't think it is spicier than the 14, but that's everybody's style and choice and taste.
Okay.
So,
and it is a little bit, 10 people, 10 different tastes.
States, yeah.
Such is whiskey.
That's what I love on whiskey.
Yeah, exactly. That's why we all have, if everybody loved the same whiskey, if, let's say, everybody in the world thought Tamdhu 15 was the best whiskey in the world, that would be really boring. It might be really good for us, but it would be really boring.
So I have one question, Gordon. Would you work with water with the 15 years old?
Work with what, sorry?
With water. You would work
with that? Put water in it?
Yeah.
I wouldn't, but I drink a lot of whiskey. I mean, I would try it. I don't particularly. Why wouldn't you? I mean, you know, my point with these things is you've got a really big sample bottle with these 500, 50, 5 cl, 500 cl. That would be very generous. Very, very good. Very. So I would always, in a situation like this, I always go back to whiskies as well. Don't finish the ones that you've gone to before. Leave them. I would always go back, but I would also pour a little bit, taste it straight, add a drop of water. Oh, I prefer it with water. Great, you know that. Or if you don't, drink it and then drink the rest without water. That's what you should do.
Okay. Also ich habe gerade Gordon gefragt, ob er bei dem schon mit Wasser arbeiten würde. Er hat gemeint, man muss es mal ausprobieren. Er würde es jetzt nicht tun. Ich weiß nicht, wie sieht es der Chat? Okay.
Wir haben eine Antwort von schon bekommen. Er sagt, nein, kein Wasser, ist perfekt ausbalanciert mit 46%. Und ich denke auch, unter 50% muss man nicht unbedingt mit Wasser experimentieren. Man kann es machen, natürlich.
Ja, klar. Ich hatte es einfach nur interessiert, weil es da so viele verschiedene Meinungen einfach gibt. Also ich würde persönlich auch nicht mit Wasser arbeiten, aber wenn man schon jemanden auch von der Quelle da hat, der vielleicht...
That's a very good point. Basically, there's 54% water in it, or 53%, 1% of volatiles. Yeah, I mean, again, it's interesting. At 46%, I usually don't add water. Okay. I think I could produce a whiskey that could break that rule for you. You know, that the point is, if you want to break that rule, you probably could produce something that might do that. If I was to produce a whiskey that was fully over matured, just based on the oak, too much influence of the oak, but was still only at 46%, you'd want to add water to it. So there is arguments that, you know, I take that point, and everybody drinks water and drinks whiskey and water in a different way.
Okay.
For sure. Water is for wimps. Water might be for wimps, but it's how whiskey is made. We need water. There's water in it anyway. So I would never criticize anybody who wants to add water to whiskey, wants to add ice to whiskey. It's totally up to me, up to them. You know, even, you know, it really is. So I'm a big drink whiskey the way. When you buy a whiskey, you own it. You drink it the way you want to drink it. And that's absolutely what it should be. There should be no people saying, drink it like this, drink it. I drink it like this, but you should drink it the way you like to drink it.
Wonderful. So, Jungs, ich würde sagen,
okay.
Kleine Pause,
also, oder? Mal ganz kurz, also ich muss sagen, der 15er, echt die Steigerung heute. Gordon hat natürlich auch vorgeschlagen, diese Reihenfolge zu nehmen. Ich finde die heute echt perfekt. Ja. Also bis dato finde ich die echt perfekt. Ich denke, der Chat macht auch schön mit.
Der Chat macht gut mit, auf jeden Fall. Ja. Ich komme gar nicht hinterher hier.
Aber auch, dass bei so vielen Leuten ein ganz kleines Päuschen notwendig ist, um mal Toilette, das Gebäck, das Wasser aufzufüllen oder eine zu rauchen, was wir natürlich nicht empfehlen. Aber wir sind in exakt 6 Minuten wieder bei euch und dann geht es weiter mit Überraschung Nummer. Nee, sind wir dann schon bei?
Ja, wir sind
Nummer
beim
4.
Sample Nummer 2.
Geht nach der Pause gleich weiter. 6 Minuten. Wir sind gleich wieder für euch da.
Gordon, a little break of 6 minutes.
6 minutes, not 7.
No. Exactly 6 minutes. And I used a little video. What is exactly 6 minutes long? And yes. Okay, wir gehen in die Pause. 6 Minuten. Wir sehen uns gleich wieder. Bis gleich. Whoa, we are back.
So,
Hey Luigi, how you going?
Hello.
so we have 3 more whiskeys to
We do. So
try it.
let's start off with, is it Mystery Dram number 2?
Mystery Dram number
It's Mystery Drama number 2. So, guys, what we have in the glass?
So, Leute, Mystery Dram Number 2. Wir haben den Tamdhu Crown Reserva.
Jawohl.
Yes.
Yes. Die Flasche? Sehr
There's
schick.
yeah, beautiful. Now,
Beautiful.
So,
here,
on your part.
wow, what I love about this whiskey, if you could just keep that up for a second, is the first thing that strikes you about that is the color of this whiskey.
Kannst du
Nein,
noch
das
was
ist-
einblenden?
This is a no age statement whiskey. We have no age on this, but what makes this whiskey unique, with the exception of the single cask, is this is all first fill, 100% first fill sherry only. So actually, that's why we need to use no age statements, because you will have sherries peaking at their peak at very different ages, depending on the size of the cask that we've talked about as well. So Grand Reserva, 46%, same strength as a 15, no age statement, very limited, and was travel retail as well, at about 140, 150 pounds a bottle.
Okay. Also, wie gesagt, der Unterschied zum Amber ist, dass wir diesmal nur First-Fill-Fässer haben und das Ganze auch eine unglaublich schöne Farbe, und es ist halt ein No-Aged Whisky, also kein Whisky mit Altersangabe, weil du das einfach beim First-Fill schwierig ist, eine Altersangabe mit anzugeben. Und it's my favorite. It's
Very, very lovely, isn't it? Very, very beautiful.
Luigi, did you ever drink it before?
Sorry?
Hast du den vorher schon mal getrunken?
Yeah.
Ja?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
He's got 6 cases at home.
Ah,
Not so
But yeah,
loud.
look, I think you know, I'm a great believer that understanding the importance of refill is really, really important.
Mhm.
But my lord, this is probably, of all the whiskies tonight, probably out of all the whiskies we've had so far, and probably up until the last one, probably got the least Tamdhu influence, Tamdhu spirit influence. But my God, those casks really make up for it in terms of those first fill, both types, first fill, big, bold flavors. But the spirit holds it together. It's still in there, Tamdhu. You still pick it up, but my God, the nose is just to die for.
It's
very nice.
Cloves, spiced. It's got almost a meaty note, almost.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's our first time that we drink the Crown Reserva.
You'll be straight off the airport.
yeah.
No, we had
140 you say, yeah?
About 140 pounds.
Also ungefähr 140 Pfund momentan. Also,
There was only ever 3,000 bottles in the first release.
okay.
Oh, okay.
Hätten sie mal zugelassen.
Hätten wir.
Ja.
Because you got to remember, when you use exclusively first fill, it's a really high concentrated experience of first fill casks, which means that you're taking away potential first fills from other whiskies, so you can't do too many of them.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic one, though. It really is.
Yeah.
And and that's why it doesn't have an age, because there could be a wide range of ages of whiskey in the.
I have for me, I have all tastes were from the 3 whiskeys before. Yeah, it's all together.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable.
very rich mouthfeel, thick, beautiful.
Yeah. Then they have not the nuts, not so more the nuts aroma, but I have more almond aroma. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that.
Ja. Also da geht mehr in diese Mandelrichtung statt in die.
Yeah.
It's
Okay,
got that-
was du sagst, ja.
You know when you get, when you sort of make jam. Not that I make a lot of jam, but you've stewed the fruits down. Real that going on, and a sweetness that's associated with that. Gurgley asking, how often do you plan to release the batches of Grand Reserva? Well, how long is a piece of string really with travel retail? We don't really know when the world is going to get back to. I think we're not going to see passenger numbers up to what they were for 4 years. That's what they're saying.
Okay.
So that sort of gives you an idea that, I don't think Grand Reserva, if you can find one, great. But I don't think I'm not sure is the answer to that. Everything's a little bit up in the air.
Okay.
That's fabulous. That is beautifully fabulous.
Yeah.
It appears a little bit stronger, I think, than the 15 because of that first fill influence, that thicker. It probably, I would say, if you'd asked me, I probably would have said 48 or 50.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
But you would expect that with first fill.
Yeah. Okay.
But my God, so smooth, so sweet, so syrupy. It sort of sticks to the gums. It's sort of absolutely beautiful. And look at the reactions tonight. I've said to everybody, and this is what I love now, is I think if we look at the audiences, people just when they taste great whiskey, that question of age becomes less important. If you really like it, I'm happy with it. I mean, we make a very honest appreciation of how we make our whiskey.
Ja. Also der Gordon hat auch gerade gemeint, dass es halt auch ein gutes Beispiel ist, dass halt Alter nicht immer eine wichtige Rolle beim Whisky spielt. Ne? Da bin ich auch vollkommen seiner Meinung und ich glaube, der Chat auch.
Also ich hatte hier auf Anhieb, also ich habe mir keine Notes durchgelesen, keine Ahnung, in der Gefahr, dass es peinlich wird, aber ich hatte sofort Melone. Melone. Ich hatte Melone.
Melon, okay. Watermelon or
Wassermelone.
Wassermelone.
Yeah. Melon,
Cantaloupe, okay.
I don't know. I don't particularly get melon. I get I know what you mean though. There's a sort of tropicalness in there as well. But
yes. Tropical fruits, of course.
But beautiful whiskey. Beautiful whiskey. Helga clearly agrees.
So, ich denke mal, bei euch kommt er am besten bis jetzt an, so wie ich es mitbekommen habe.
Das ist, wie gesagt, immer eine Top-Steigerung. Ja.
Schreibt's mal ein bisschen im Chat mit rein, was für euch bis jetzt der beste Whisky war und ob der Gran Reserva die anderen quasi in die Ecke stellt. Also für mich persönlich
schon
ist wirklich bis jetzt mit das Beste.
Ja.
Okay.
Muss ich sagen.
Ja.
I did share. Sorry.
No problem.
I did share our sherry cask video in the chat for people to look at it later. But I mean, look, this is a very limited release because of its maturation style. First fill, it's the way I sort of like to think this whiskey is. It's lots of different single casks that you've just married together.
You have shared it now in the chat, Gordon?
No, I shared it during the 7 minutes that there was some cigarette smoking going on.
Okay. Also der Gordon hat, glaube ich, ein Video während der Pause geteilt. Ich weiß nicht, ob ihr das sehen könnt.
Nee, ich sehe es auch nicht.
Okay.
Im Chat?
I shared it in the chat on YouTube.
On YouTube, okay.
On YouTube underneath, So those if they want to watch the video, unfortunately I'm in it, which is not good, but it's a really good video. I hope you'd agree.
Okay, of course.
So what do you think, guys? Are you enjoying the Grand Reserva?
Yeah.
Very nice.
It is the thickest. It's the sort of thickest whiskey we've had so far, isn't it?
I think it's the strongest one. It's the thickest. It's the balance of the tongue is very, very, very balanced. It's very good. Yeah.
And there's a question there. Grand Reserva is great, but it is also twice the price of the 15. Yes. I'm not unapologetic about that because we're only using first fill. That is its selling point. That is why it tastes the way it is. So yeah. Great though. Fabulous. But yeah, I mean, I think when you look at there's the our Spain to Speyside campaign has really been allowed us to really own sherry, talk about sherry, because we're natural color, because we can do things like Grand Reserva, we can do sort of the lighter maturation style, a bit like the 12-year-old is a welcome in, and then we can go on to bigger, maybe more bolder things like the batch strength and, of course, the single cask.
Gordon, there's a very interesting question.
Back for a sec. In my opinion, it depends. Are you filling up a young whiskey and declaring it as NAS, or are you blending different ages? And if you have to put the youngest on your label? Well, I mean, if you look at something like Grand Reserva, the thing that defines why it has no age is the fact we're using first fill only. That means that we're using maybe younger, smaller casks and bigger, older casks, not even going into the natural, not even going to the oak type. So there are whiskies out there that NAS has been used to produce a young whiskey. There's no doubt about that. Mm-hmm. But when you taste something like Grand Reserva, or even the batch strength, which is our next whiskey, you see that, using no age is actually a feature of maturation. It's a feature of the whiskey. It's not a negative or a thing to mark against the whiskey when you taste it. And I think that's important. And so what I think when people buy whiskey, they look at the 15 and they go, that's a 15-year-old. Good. In my head, I'm paying 80 euros for a 15-year-old. Good. Then they look at something like Grand Reserva, particularly in travel retail, and they go, it's not got an age on it. And it's 150 euros or whatever. Why is that? What's going on? But when you taste it, it sort of comes together in your head. But in travel retail, that's quite hard to do. So depending on who's buying it is quite important.
Mhm. Also der Gordon hat auch gerade gemeint, dass es halt natürlich, ich weiß nicht, wie es euch dabei geht. Also bei mir spielt Alter nicht wirklich eine Rolle, weil ich weiß, dass Whisky auch mit keiner Altersangabe sensationell schmecken kann. Das haben wir auch wieder das größte Beispiel. Mich würde es gerne interessieren, wie der Chat das so sieht. Seid ihr generell, ich sag mal, geht es ja nach Alter oder kauft ihr auch mal blinden Whisky, wo er sagt, ja, der könnte mich auch von der Farbe oder generell von den Bewertungen so weghauen? Ne?
Wir können ja mal warten, bis diese Chats antworten. Ja. Die Sache ist, ich denke, vor ein paar Jahren war die Altersangabe unheimlich wichtig, um den Whisky zu platzieren auf dem Markt. Ja. Sind die ersten NAS gekommen, die so durchschnittlich waren, aber das hat sich so dermaßen ins Positive entwickelt, dass du mittlerweile auch selber als Endkunde bereit bist, mehr Geld auszugeben für einen NAS-Whisky, weil du anhand dieses Beispiels, Tamdhu Grant, bereit bist, wo du sagst, wow, der schmeckt so intensiv, der schmeckt mir jetzt besser wie der 15er von bla bla bla, als Beispiel. Also ich denke, diese NAS-Geschichte hat sich so zum Positiven entwickelt, dass man echt empfehlen kann, auch mal mehr Geld für sowas auszugeben.
Das ist bei uns genauso. Wir machen ja viele eigene Blended Malts. Und da haben wir auch seltenst eine Altersangabe drauf. Einfach aus dem Grund, weil du brauchst manchmal jungen Stoff, um so eine gewisse Note mit reinzukriegen. Ne? Und da musst du halt vielleicht, keine Ahnung, 7 oder 8 Jahre draufschreiben, obwohl teilweise Malts enthalten sind, die 20 Jahre alt sind, was weiß ich. Im Ganzen nicht gerecht, schreibst du kein Alter drauf, fertig. Ja. Ne? So einfach ist es.
Also ich denke eher eine positive Entwicklung in der NAS-Geschichte.
Ja.
Age is that's very true.
Yeah.
But Carl Philip Simon has absolutely summed it up, particularly for this whiskey.
Where is it?
First fill 5 years are not the same as third fill 20 years. He's absolutely right. Yeah. Absolutely right. You're going to get two really different whiskies there. And depending on what you want, a third fill may be really light color, but it still, if it's a good cask, could be a really nice whiskey. First fill 5 years can be really bold and rich, and that's where NAS can, if you then want to, you could, for example, want to combine those two whiskies for some reason. And that's where blending really comes in. And that's what NAS is. It's a feature of blending. It's using, we could all put a 3 on it if we really wanted to. If people were, if people really want an age, we would put a 3 on it, or a 5. But that doesn't help anybody because, the whole point is everybody would then think it's a 6-year-old whiskey. Yeah. The whole point of this Grand Reserva and the batch strength is it's a range of casks.
Yeah.
Luigi, auch sehr interessant.
Bitte?
Auch sehr interessant von Lars.
What does that say?
So Lars say, I'm not to buy blind. They have simple sample. Yeah.
Very good. Very good.
So guys,
can we move on?
Could you tell a little bit more of you for Gordon? Yeah.
A little bit more about me.
No, for the guys, for you. Könntest du ein bisschen mehr über euch erzählen?
Da leite ich mal direkt an Steffen weiter.
Okay. Ja. Wir machen das Ganze mal auf Deutsch.
Nee, das war...
So
how long you are on the market, guys? 3 years, 4 years? 5 years?
No. 2 years.
2 years.
2 years. Oh, yeah.
Very young company.
Yes. And we are sampling whiskies. So we buy whiskey bottles, or like Tamdhu 15 years old, filling them in sample bottles. Yes. Yeah. And sell them to the customer.
So what you are saying is, if I'm a little bit, for example, I want to buy a Tamdhu 15, but I don't really want to spend 80 euros because I don't know what it tastes like. I can buy this for 10 euros or whatever it is.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yes. And if it is nice for you, if you want to buy the big bottle, so we have shops, partner shops. You can buy the big bottle.
Yeah. We have no big bottle.
Yes. We don't sell big bottles. We only sell samples.
Got you.
And make a live tastings or something like that.
Oh, what a great idea.
Yes.
You buy local dealer by the guys who wants to drink the whiskey, not by us. The small
local to you,
to buy the big one.
Yeah, there's a couple of people do that in the UK as well, and I think obviously it's been really, really good. It's a great idea because it gives, it's like everything, you can, I heard about this X whiskey. Guys, have you got it? Yeah, we've got it. Yeah. It's 10 euros. We'll send it to you. You drink it and you go, oh, no, I really don't like it. I'm never going to try that again. Yeah. Or whatever. So, yeah. Good idea.
Könnt ihr die Frage vom Joe Haag mal einblenden?
Warte, Joe.
Wir sind leicht verzögert.
Ja, irgendwie hängen wir mehr hinterher.
Wir sehen das nicht, was ihr seht.
Wo ist denn von Joe? Wahrscheinlich kommt... Ach, hier, Joe Haag. Warte mal. Kennst du das?
Ja.
Okay.
Joe, in a word, no. I would agree. I have tasted. Look, we are a sherry cask whiskey at the moment, Oloroso only. The plan would be to stick to that until we have a bigger presence and a bit more of an understanding. There is no plans to use port or bourbon or Amontillado or PX or anything. We're filling solely into the casks, which we know make Tamdhu taste as wonderful as we've tasted the first 4 whiskies. So there's no need for us to change that remit currently. We come from a company, an independent Scottish business, which really focuses on style. So Glengoyne has a defined style. It's a great whiskey. Fully matured as Tamdhu is. We commit to that and we really focus on the quality of that. So we don't need to do heavily peated Tamdhus or bourbon Tamdhus or anything like that. We're sticking with the things that we know we can do really well. Okay, it's good like this. Thanks, Joe. Wonderful.
So, what we have next?
We have batch strength number 5.
Yeah. Oh, it's Gordon. It's the best batch strength than I ever have.
Really? You love it?
Yeah.
Good,
I
good.
like the first one and now the fifth one, the batch 5. That's my favorite.
Great. Yeah, let's try this. So, somebody's saying, I think, something about 200. Den Grand Reserve wurde ich nicht blind for 245 euros. What does that mean?
The Grand Reserve I would never buy for 245 euros. But thanks God, they are a simple sample.
Does Heinrich work for Simple Sample? I'm joking.
No.
I'm joking. It's absolutely true though, for sure. Absolutely true. So, batch strength, 5th in the series, 59.8% alcohol. So I think batch 4 was down at about 57.8 from what I can remember. So we've gone back up. The reason these are not cask strength, official cask strength, we've added a little bit of water to bring them beneath 60% alcohol, because a lot of these casks will have been filled at 70% alcohol off the still strength. And the only reason they were done was to save on warehouse space. We now fill all Tamdhu at 63.5% alcohol.
Okay.
So that's why it's batch strength, because there's some casks in here that were higher strength. So they would have been sitting at 63, 64, 65% alcohol, which is too high for a cask strength.
Okay. Also die Philosophie hinter Tamdhu ist halt einfach, dass alles, was über 60 ein bisschen zu stark ist für eine Fassstärke. Deswegen pendeln sie sich immer zwischen 58 und 60 halt einfach ein.
Ja. Gordon, one question. Do you know how many casks you are married for one batch?
It's a good question. Probably somewhere in the region of. Hold on, let me think. 10. Probably about 40, 30, 40, something like that.
Okay.
It's a bit of a very quick maths calculation, but something in that area potentially. Guessing. Depends on the casts in terms of butts and puncheons, but about the 15-year-old each year is about 24,000 bottles. This is about the same. So if you assume, out of butt you get 600 bottles, say, roughly, then you can do a rough maths calculation. But it varies every year. But the key thing is here, a little bit more American oak forward. So I think when you get European oak and American oak together, and you're going to see this in the last whiskey when it's just a single cask, you get one defined style. They marry together and they sort of work. American oak has a profile European oak has a jaggy profile. You taste it in that sort of tannins and spice, and the American oak fills out the gaps. It sort of rounds the whole thing off. But here, you've got a little bit more American oak where the European oak fits in the background. So brilliant whiskey this.
Also ungefähr 13 bis 14 Fässer, oder? Habe ich das richtig verstanden? Steffen?
Nicht 30 bis 40?
Nicht 13 bis 40.
30 bis 40, ja schon. 13 bis 14 wäre ein bisschen weniger. Das stimmt.
24.000 Flaschen.
Achso.
Aber ist im Batch auch nicht so extrem viel. Ja? Also gibt es deutlich größere Batches. Rudolf, wir sind jetzt beim Batch Strange Number 5.
Rudolf hat sich noch im Travel Retail schnell geholt.
Interested in Egon's question. I'm a fan of total transparency. The label is the contract between the distiller and the customer. As much info as possible is needed here. So I prefer whiskey with an age statement. My point would be, Egon, I think that's a fair point, and that's your view. I would rather have, if I had the option of knowing the maturation, the type of cask, the oak style, the previous contents of that cask and the strength, I would rather that than just having the age. Now, I know that's not what you were meaning, but it's about what information is relevant to you. And for me, I'm going to get more information from knowing, obviously, the name of the distillery, the cask type, the strength, than I am from the age. And ultimately, whiskey is about what it tastes like. And you're going to get more information from cask, wood type, strength, distillery name than you would from distillery and age, would be my view.
Okay. Also Gordon hat das gerade gemeint, also weil der Egon ja gemeint hat, dass man aus dem Alter oder besser gesagt aus dem Etikett mit dem Alter einfach mehr sagen kann. Aber Gordon ist da einfach anderer Meinung, dass er halt sagt, dass man halt vom Fasstyp, von der Fassgröße, wenn es meistens draufsteht, oder von der Distillery, von der Lagerung einfach ein bisschen mehr rauskitzeln kann. Aber das ist jetzt Gordon-Meinung, da kann man philosophieren, wie man möchte.
Ich sage mal, wenn du ein hohes Alter hast, ja, wir haben natürlich die Fully Matured mit hohem Alter, brauchen wir jetzt nicht drüber reden, das ist natürlich eine tolle Geschichte, aber wenn ich ein Refill habe, was 18 Jahre alt ist manchmal so ausdrucksstark wie ein Dreijähriger, ja, in meinen Augen. Also es kommt schon extrem auf die Fassart an, was war vorher drin, ist es ein First Fill oder was ist da dahinter? Also wir tasten ja auch nun viel, ja, logischerweise, und wir hatten schon öfters Whiskys mit hoher Altersangabe, wo wir gesagt haben, nee, ja, das geht gar nicht. Ja. Genauso umgekehrt, es gab auch Nas, die durchgefallen sind. Also ich will jetzt nicht Partei ergreifen für irgendwas, aber es muss schon ordentlich gemacht sein und mancher Nas ist einfach besser gemacht wie einer, der schon ein paar Jahre auf dem Buckel hat, aber halt in Fässern, die, halt da standen. Ja, also da muss man ganz klar sagen, das Fassmanagement spielt da, glaube ich, die entscheidende Rolle. Ja.
Okay.
Können wir vielleicht die Flasche noch sehen, Stefan?
Yeah. I forget the bottle.
There we go. There's the flash.
Yeah.
So that's batch number 5.
I love
with a white box.
With a white box, with a white surround. Beautiful surround. Great whiskey. And as you say, they've all been a variation on a theme. So I actually prefer batch 3 is my favorite.
Okay.
If I'm honest, given the choice. But this is they're all great. It's just like trying to pick your favorite, I don't know, child. Not that you would ever do that, but you know what I mean.
I know what you mean. Yeah. Okay. I prefer the first one and now the fifth one.
Is that of your children or the whiskey?
The whiskey.
So Gordon, we have a battle.
No, it wasn't meant to be a battle. Just my view. Egon is more than welcome to his views. Absolutely. This is what whiskey creates a bit of a debate, and that's what's great.
Yes.
This is fabulous, look. Fabulous. So I pick up on the nose. I still get that creamy. There's vanilla in here. Yeah. There's a bit of citrus. And that really just shows you that this is not, I wouldn't put this, although it's 60% alcohol, I wouldn't describe this as a sherry bomb. It's not a sherry bomb. It's a very mellow whiskey with nuts and, a real creaminess, a cinnamony sort of style to it. And on the taste, if you add water, really creamy.
Yeah, it's not the dark chocolate heavy whiskey. It's very, very balanced. Yeah.
So MM writes, batch 5 has so much more intensity, spiciness, and much more European oak.
Right. Okay.
Nice.
Yeah. No, it's beautiful. Yeah, I mean, it has got that. There is European oak in here, but there's a nice bit of American oak as well. And it's the strength is in there. But even when you nose this, you go 60% alcohol. Nah.
That's right.
Of it. And that means that is a sign of two things. That is a sign of great blending, but it's a sign of great cask and spirit as well.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Really, really good. And about, I don't know what this is price-wise, but bang for your buck, great whiskey.
Yeah. I think the alcohol is well integrated in the whiskey. Yeah? It's very balanced.
Mm.
Yeah.
Luigi, was ist das englische Wort für Zuckerwatte?
Zucker.
Schagge.
Probier's das gar nicht.
Cotton Candy, ja. Cotton Candy.
Cotton Candy.
Ja.
Cotton Candy.
Ja.
Okay. Ja,
It's,
Das hat das auch gegoogelt.
it's a beautiful example of Tamdhu. I mean, it's probably the highest. I think it's about the highest strength Tamdhu batch strength there has been.
Yeah. The
The
last
first
one
I
have 1% less.
think it was 2.
It's 2.
I think it was 57.8. Yeah.
Okay.
Batch 4, I think, was 57.8.
Okay.
It's very hard to remember every single.
Yeah.
So,
check.
Sebastian von deinwhisky.de, bist du noch im Chat? Schreib mal bitte kurz, falls du noch da sein solltest.
It's absolutely gorgeous, though. Love it. Vanilla side of the dram becomes more intense with Dirk. Absolutely, I think that's true. Probably creamier on the mouthfeel, Dirk, I would imagine as well. That's a sign of that sort of way the water changes a whiskey that's got a bit more American oak in it. Absolutely, great.
Also der liegt so ungefähr bei 70 Euro UVP, was von uns angegeben ist. Ja.
Okay. Ja, Sebastian, was kostet der bei dir? Bei deinwhisky.de. Was kostet der Bed Strange Number 5 bei dir als Großflasche?
Oh,
Ja.
bye.
See you guys.
You clicked the wrong button, I think.
Yeah.
Hey, they're back.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, how are you? Did you have it? I didn't realize we were having a 6-second break as well.
Sorry.
The bar wants to close.
Yeah.
Said, no.
No! So, just very quickly, our bar's shut in Germany at the moment.
Yeah, I'm sitting here in the pub and
But you are in a lockdown, are you not?
Yeah. Yesterday until 10th of January at the moment.
So what can you do for Christmas?
Sorry?
What can you do to meet people at Christmas, if anything?
Yeah, we can meet the own family with 4 other peoples.
yes,
Oh,
adults.
Tough Christmas. Well, I hope you all have a good. Just keep drinking the whiskey. It'll be fine.
Yeah, it's better. It's better to talk.
Thank God for simple sample at Christmas.
Yeah.
So, der Bed Strange kostet bei Sebastian 67,90 €. Ich denke mal, Top-Preis-Leistungsverhältnis. Kann man
That
nicht
is
sagen.
technically giving it away. Great whiskey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's my favorite from the batch.
Just going back to my battle with Egan. Egan's back in the room. Egan, I know you don't, and I just wanted to get across. It's absolutely, people buy whiskey the way they want to buy. It's up to them, and totally get your point, my friend. Intrigued to know what you think of the batch strength.
Kannst du die Frage nochmal einblenden vom Egon? Ja, bist dabei.
Meinst du das?
Ja.
Okay.
But yeah, I think the general consensus seems to be a lot of people loving the batch strength. And I think, again, if you look at the marketplace, and you guys will know, high strength, cask strength, sherry cask only whiskey is very few that produce that style of whiskey. Abelard Rabuna, a great whiskey. Abelard Rabuna, a lot of Abelard Rabuna drinkers, which I've loved Abelard Rabuna over many years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Love do batch strength as well.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Oh.
Yeah, but I don't like batch 65 and batch 66. It's
65 is not so good.
no.
Yeah.
I don't like 65, but I love batch 52 and 54.
Okay, see, you love Abelard Rabuna more than I do because you know all about the batch. I don't drink it as much as you do. But you know what I mean? You clearly love your Abelard Rabuna, which means that Tamdhu batch strength is very much an option for you.
Yes. It's
very good.
Kannst du mal die Frage oder den Kommentar vom Andi Butze einblenden? Finde ich auch sehr spannend.
Yeah. I think has Andy read the official tasting note? That's pretty much what the official tasting note is. Very, very good. But yeah, no, it's fantastic. Absolutely right. I mean, I once did a tasting, and you can translate this if you like. And I went and I my nose is not brilliant. I don't have a fabulous nose. But I was picking and I said, oh, and I'm getting leather. And this guy in the front of the tasting was like, I'm not getting leather. You getting leather? Did you get leather? And he was like, leather. He says, what kind of leather? I said, just leather, sort of wet brown leather. I'm not getting that. I'm not getting that. I had to say to him at the end, as a joke, I said, I think maybe your nose is broken. I didn't say that. I said to him, the worst thing you can do is listen to somebody's tasting note or listen to somebody's view and then go, I'm not picking that up. Why am I not getting that? Because it just makes it worse. Don't just go with your nose.
Look at this.
Martin. Best NAS sherry cask whiskey equals Glengoyne teapot dram. Well, I mean, that is a fabulous, fabulous whiskey. Different style to probably a little bit more like a high-strength Grand Reserva, if we're honest, teapot dram. But yeah, I mean, I'm a even before I worked for Glengoyne, I drank teapot dram on almost intravenously. It's a fantastic whiskey. I can't argue that it's a great whiskey. It is a great whiskey. It is a great whiskey, for sure.
Okay. So, guys, we have the last one.
Okay, right? Now we're on to the German exclusive.
Yeah, we go to the German exclusive.
This is the one I've not tasted. This is very exciting.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have never tasted this. I've never even. I know nothing about this whiskey, which is. There you go. So I'm very excited.
That was exclusive for Dine Whiskey here from Germany. It's have 59.7, right?
Very strong.
Oh, yes.
59.7. It was American Oak.
American Oak? Okay.
Single Cask American Oak 59.7. Sebastian, bitte korrigier mich, wenn ich jetzt irgendwas falsch gemacht habe.
So the first thing is, if that had been a European oak, you'd get a very different profile.
I think it was an American oak, but Sebastian, could you tell us what this was?
Sebastian, hau rein.
It's European oak, isn't it? What I can remember, it's European oak. The colour would say to be European oak.
It's European oak, okay.
I think it is European oak.
European oak. Okay, sorry, my mistake. It was European oak. Yeah.
The nose says to be European oak.
European oak. Yeah.
European oak.
So, and the color says European oak as well. So, European oak. I guess. How many bottles were
there? 355, I think.
So it's a hogshead. I wanted to come in blind to this because I haven't tasted this. This all went to Germany before I even got a sample.
Okay.
So I was like, wait, what?
Also für alle Händler da draußen, die sich mal wirklich ein Exklusivfass Tamdhu gönnen möchten, der kann mich bitte auch gerne anschreiben. Ja.
Genau. Über Simple Sample anschreiben, wie geht es an Luigi weiter und ziehen die Provision.
Genau.
Der trägt nur 25%.
So Gordon, what do you think?
Blood orange with cinnamon.
Yeah, I'm getting
blood orange.
I'm getting quite nutty.
Nutty, okay. Yeah.
Quite blackberry raisins.
But more.
A little bit of blood orange, maybe. Not.
I have almond and
Nutmeg. What's that in German? Nutmeg. What's that in German?
Was? Nutmeg?
Yeah.
Nutmeg.
Nutmeg. Jetzt bin ich am Schlauch.
Schnell googeln.
Schnell googeln, genau.
That is beautiful, though. Oh, Muscat.
Muscat, ja. Muscat, genau.
Yeah,
Okay.
beautiful. So yeah, I mean, it's got a fairly dark profile, but it's not ridiculously fruity. There's a fruitiness in it, but there's a darkness to it. I get almost a hint of a savory tone.
I think I have too many whiskeys tonight. It smells like banana, yeah.
Du merkst schon, er schiebt schon ordentlich an. Er hat schon ordentlich Druck dahinter. Den musst du schon ein bisschen im Glas lassen. Vielleicht ein wenig Wasser oder so. Also es ist schon ein purer Whisky, kann man so sagen. Der drückt schon ordentlich, ne? Also cooles Teil.
Oh.
Quite on the taste, pretty woody. Quite spicy. That's a hogshead for you, possibly. Quite
But
peppery,
great.
cinnamon.
Great. 2006 distilled and 2020 bottled. 14 years old. Single cask.
I am going to add water to this.
Yeah.
I want to try.
You're right. We've had 6 powerful whiskies tonight, so this is one that's punching through what we've had tonight.
It puts me out.
Puts me the juice out. My English is not the yellow from the egg.
But the taste puts me the shoes out. Nice.
Do you know it?
I don't know what that means. I don't know what that expression means. No. The smell is great. The taste puts me the shoes out. Right. Okay. Fair enough.
How can I translate?
It's great.
Is that a positive thing?
Yes, it's a very positive thing.
Okay. Puts me the shoes out. Is that a German expression?
Yeah, it's a German saying. Yeah, it's yeah.
Das zieht mir die Schuhe aus. Auf Deutsch.
I'm trying to think if there's an English equivalent expression.
Okay.
Puts me the shoes out.
I'm not sure. Very, very good. So 14 years old, I guess, or maybe 13, depending on when it was distilled.
Yeah, it's 13, between 13 and 14.
2006. And this is my point. This is a very different experience to a sherry butt. You know, it's a bit more intense. The alcohol manifests itself in a different way. The flavors manifest themselves in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
It really is quite oily. It's a little bit oily.
Yeah.
Really, really good though. Drop of water. Oh yeah, love it with a drop of water.
A drop of water here.
Yep.
Wo ist eigentlich der Drop?
Oh, the drop.
Oh yeah, I'm loving that now. A bit of water there. That's fantastic.
The banana aroma come.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, or?
A little bit water, it's better.
Yeah. No, I agree with water. I would add water to this. Yeah. Luigi, is this all sold out?
Sorry?
Is this all sold out? Is this?
I don't know, Sebastian. It's sold out. We have Sebastian here on the chat from Dine Whiskey. I think so. Huh?
Helga thinks there's too much wood. I try adding a bit of water, Helga. See how you get on with that. But yeah, it's quite full on. There's quite a bit of spice in there. I don't think there's too much wood. I just think it's a feature of hogsheads, I think.
Mach mal ein wenig Wasser rein. Ein bisschen Wasser reinmachen, so ein paar Tröpfchen. Also nicht nur 1, 2, macht ruhig mal 6, 7, 10 Tropfen rein. Dann öffnet der sich, der wird ein bisschen süßer. Also an der Lippe ist er auch etwas süßer dann. Und dann gibt er sich echt toll. Ja.
Yeah, it's very sweet on the tongue, on the lips, but it's very oily. Yeah, it's I think it's.
I love it, but
not yet. Some bottles are available. Okay.
Still available at dinewhiskey.de.
Very nice.
I love it. Lovely. Oh, I love it. It's a great way to finish. If you think, my point would be, if you look at where we've come from, 12 at the beginning, and you go back to the 12, and you're like, let's put this. I mean, obviously, unbelievable difference, but it proves that firstly, sherry cask whiskies are not just sherry cask whiskies. There's a huge range, but what a powerful expression to finish on. Fantastic expression. And that's the second Dine whiskey cask, I think.
It's the second one, yes.
Yeah.
No,
it's true.
no worry, Gordon. Next year come the next one, yeah. I talked with Sebastian 2 days ago. Yeah.
Okay, good. Excellent. Well, I mean, we don't do many single casks, and obviously Germany is a key market for us. We do a few in Asia. China's a really good market for us, of course. And America market that's struggling a little bit with tariffs and things at the moment, and COVID.
Yeah.
They just don't really seem to care about COVID. So,
Custom. Yeah. In America, is the problem the custom of Scotch whiskey, or?
Sorry, say that again.
The problem is the custom from Scotch whiskey to deliver it on USA. 25%.
25% on single malt. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really hard.
Yeah, it's really hard. Sales are down 30% in the US at the moment, and it's just. I mean, the EU is so that it's all to do with Airbus and Boeing, and the EU is doing the same with bourbon, and you're just like, what's the point of this?
Yeah.
Particularly with and what I find really annoying about it is we're small producers. There's a lot of small producers. It doesn't affect the Diageos and it affects the smaller guys, even smaller than us.
Yeah.
And it's big business, corporate big business, government funded, illegally funded big business affecting smaller business. Add in COVID, add in all those issues of COVID, and people are struggling enough as it is. And there's no thought that, well, why don't we just do away with this at the moment, because this is mad to be having, really crazy. That's my political statement.
I have one last question.
Yeah.
What's your opinion about the German whiskey market?
I love the German whiskey market.
Okay.
I think it's. If I'm honest, I love the German. I like the Dutch too.
Okay.
But I like both markets. The German whiskey market is got a lot of friends in Germany that I love visiting and coming to, and I've not been in Germany for a long time.
Last
year, I think.
Last year in Frankfurt, right?
Yeah, for Frankfurt, for Interwhisky.
Interwhisky, yeah.
And so I was there. You were, Luigi, I think, on the Tamdhu stand, of course.
Yeah.
Upstairs in Interwhisky. And I love the German market. I love coming to the market. I can come with my Tamdhu shirt on, and I can come with a Glengoyne shirt on, and I can do different things. And it's a great market to come into. Okay. And but obviously at the moment it's the on trade is difficult, and there's quite a lot of issues around the world with the on trade at the moment.
Okay. So it's.
What do you think about the saying that Tamdhu is going to be the secret replacement of Macallan?
Tamdhu Rarecast batch number 2.
I think it's not up to us to do that. That's up to other people to make that statement. But I think what we're producing is wonderful, wonderful whiskey, and across all of these, they've all been wonderful. And if you want to try any of them before you buy them, try these guys called Simple Sample. They're really, really good. But no, I think it's a really, really interesting whiskey that we're producing, and there's no doubt that I sort of say to people, Macallan is a bullet train in China, or in Japan. We are a small engine in Scotland going like this. But what I say to people is, get on the train early, you'll get a seat, because we are going somewhere. We're not very quickly at the moment, but we are going somewhere. We're building it really slowly. If you know the Tamdhu, you've been lucky enough to be part of this tonight, you sort of know what I'm talking about. So get on our little train and we'll go together somewhere. And we're never going to be Macallan. We'll never be a replacement for Macallan. They are an amazing brand. For those who want to understand Tamdhu and enjoy what we produce, get on the train, would be my view.
Yeah. So Aaron Angelman has written Tamdhu is like Macallan, but in delicious.
Well, I mean, that's compliments indeed, because Macallan has done so much for our industry, and they really have pushed whiskey into globally, and they need so much thanks for that. But certainly, Tamdhu, we're inextricably linked to them. We used to be part of the same family as they are. So there's a bit of that DNA running through what you're from a cask perspective. So yeah, it's a great 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 whiskies we're producing. How are you guys managing? Oh,
many thanks.
Well, how you guys managing the going is outstanding, lovely profile. Lovely team and a big family. Hope the same for Rosebank as well then.
Yeah, no, Rosebank, we just to give people a wee bit of an update on Rosebank, we had to pause the build on Rosebank just because of COVID, but also just because, a few sensible things. When you're looking at building a new distillery and you're... as part of that is a visitor centre, and you look at what's going on in terms of visitors at the moment, then you'd be like, let's just have a little rework of what we're going to do in the short term. And so that's what we've gone through, just a reappraisal of how we're going to build it, when we're going to build it. The distillery will be obviously first, and then so yeah, we've got great. The key thing about our business is it's a family-run business, and that is why that's why Gurgley says that. Lovely profile, lovely team. It's like a big family. That is what we're like. And we are, I was speaking with our owner, Leonard, who he says to me, I've still got a contract with a guy who's distributed our whiskies for 23 years in a bizarre market in the middle. And we just shook on it. There's no written contract. We just shook on it. And I'm like, that's quite refreshing in this day and age, Yeah. And that just sort of shows you that there's some really it's the way we do business. We're a really, really honest. I like to think we're a very honest producer.
Okay.
I think the way we produce Tamdhu is great.
Luigi, please translate.
So Rudolf say thank you on Simple Sample. They have a whole they could taste the whole Tamdhu range. It was a very, very big pleasure to have Tamdhu in the glass, and it's not the last one. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, then we have, I think we have it's an interesting question from Thorsten. What is about the opportunities to visit the distillery? Do you have interesting tours?
Thorsten, no. You can't visit Tamdhu as a paying member of the public. What you probably have to do is you'd have to persuade Luigi to arrange a visit for you at the distillery via us. We're not open to the public. So the only time we are is the Spirit of Speyside Whiskey Festival, where we're open for 2 days.
Okay.
And it's just because the distillery doesn't have a setup for a visitor centre. And again, just in line with what I've just said, with what's going on with visitor centres and visits to Scotland, our tourism has been down so much this year. It's like for planes, it's not going to recover back to where it was in 6 months. It will not be like that. It will take 2-3 years. So even in the next 2 or 3 years, we're not going to invest in a visitor centre. And also, there's so many great other distilleries with bigger brand names like Glenfiddich and Macallan who do great tours, that Tamdhu's brand is still so small that it wouldn't be worth the investment. We'd rather spend the money that we would spend that on on casks and on producing the single malt at the moment. And I think that's a fair point for us to be.
Okay. Also Gordon hat gemeint, dass halt Tamdhu noch zu klein ist, um dieses Investment von einem Visitor Center zu stemmen. Deswegen tun sie es lieber in die Fässer reinpumpen. Also wer mal Tamdhu besuchen möchte, der versucht mal, sich bei mir zu melden. And
So.
dann.
Yeah. One last question.
One last question.
How many people are working at the Tamdhu Distillery?
There's a team of about 12 to 15.
12 to 15. Okay.
Wow.
12 to 15 is about 8 maybe who live on site. We have cottages on site. Sandy, our distillery manager, lives on site. And we've just converted a house there on site for special visitors. But it's a team of about 12 to 15, 10 to 15. There's some real characters there. And they work on shift, obviously. But actually, as a distillery, it's a distillery that runs very automated. So it's quite computer-driven because that's the way it was when we bought it. If you go to Glengoyne, it's completely the opposite. So that's really the sort of setup we have there. Obviously, at Glengoyne, our sister distillery, we probably have about the same size of production team, but we also have a huge tour guide element that we use because we get 90,000 visitors a year. So yeah, that's the sort of difference between the two distilleries. Rosebank will be recruiting people to work at Rosebank as well. So yeah, it's exciting times for us. What does Tamdhu mean? It means a little dark hill in a slightly evil way.
Sorry?
So in a slightly evil way, like dark, slightly scary way.
Okay.
Dark hill, Tamdhu.
Okay.
Tamdhu, it could be, a sort of a horror film, Tamdhu, the return of Tamdhu 2, the return
Tamdhu
of the Cherry Cat. Killed by a stave.
Okay.
Yeah, something like that. So that's what it means, little dark hill. Little dark hill.
So Gordon,
I have very much reactions of the viewers. So every whiskey was top tonight. Really thanks for the tasting. My favorite was number 5 and 6. I would buy some more Tamdhus in the future. Tamdhu and Glengoyne are doing a great job. Please, more of them. Thanks a lot. It was very interesting and entertaining and delicious, of course.
Thank you, Joe.
It was a great tasting. Thank you, guys. Thanks
Thank
to you, Luigi. I'm a Tamdhu fanboy. Simple. Okay.
What's the next style of tasting?
Yes. Okay. The tasting, I think it was great. It was very great. Very great.
It's great to be part of it, guys.
Thank you, Gordon. It was a pleasure to be here with you.
Very nice.
I'd love everybody to have a look at that video or get the link to it. So,
yeah, please.
Can I reshare that on? I can't just reshare that. Who anybody wants to see it? It's really worth watching in terms of.
Ja, also ich denke, wir sprechen uns wieder, wenn der Tamdhu 18 rausgekommen ist. Ja. Da können wir gerne nochmal was aufziehen. Vielleicht treiben wir bis dahin nochmal 1, 2 Abfüllungen auf und vielleicht dein Whisky nochmal eine kleine Abfüllung. Ja. Vielleicht schreit das ja nach Wiederholung. Ich würde das Ganze jetzt in dem Sinne beenden. Recht herzlichen Dank. Thank you very much. Gordon, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Luigi, danke für dein Entgegenkommen. Luigi ist auch sehr verantwortlich dafür, dass das Circuit bei euch steht. Genauso dein Whisky uns auch sehr gut entgegengekommen ist für seine Abfüllung. Also ich denke, die Community hat wieder gezeigt, dass sie zusammenarbeiten kann. Und in diesem Sinne wünsche ich einen schönen Abend, schönes Fest, guten Rutsch und wir hoffen alle auf ein besseres Jahr 2021.
Genau.
Und in diesem Sinne denke ich, vielleicht könnt ihr euch noch verabschieden. Wir tun das jetzt mal in dem Sinne. Luigi.
Okay.
Macht's
It
gut.
was a pleasure, Gordon.
Well,
to
pleasure.
be here with you. Have a nice holiday. Have a nice Christmas.
Thank you very much.
Year.
You too.
Thank you.
I always, just to sign off, the only other thing I can do in German is I can only sing is O Tannenbaum, O Tannenbaum.
Thank you, Gordon.
Wie grün
It's
sind
amazing
deine-
the things you remember from school. That's all I know.
Okay.
Have a great Christmas. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Gordon. Bye-bye.